Okay, let's dive into this explainer and impartially unpack the fascinating differences between the policy approaches of Maryland and Florida over an extensive period leading up to the near future. Having split my time living between the Chesapeake Bay and the Gulf Coast during this era, I have experienced personally how these regional policies shape everyday life. Whether you're grabbing local crab cakes before a neighborhood lacrosse match or enjoying Cuban sandwiches while listening to vibrant live music down in Miami, the daily reality in these regions feels distinctly different. And the data shows us exactly why. What is truly remarkable is the sheer volume of wealth leaving Maryland. We are seeing a massive migration as neighbors literally pack up their cars and shift to states like Florida, seeking a completely different economic and social environment. This brings us to the core question of our explainer. What exactly is driving this massive domestic migration, and what are the daily trade-offs for families making the move? Here is our roadmap. We will track the population shift, contrast education strategies, compare taxes and budgets, look at standard of living outcomes, face the climate hazards, and finally examine the housing market correction. Starting off with contrasting education strategies. For families, this topic completely dominates chatter at local sporting events and community gatherings. The source reports highlight a stark contrast between Florida's rapid expansion of parent-powered charter schools and Maryland's adherence to a traditional centralized public school system. As a parent navigating these systems, your daily options for where you send your kids are fundamentally different depending on your zip code. This brilliantly illustrates the data points presented, showing elementary reading scores in Florida sitting above the national average, while Maryland's scores sit below. It is a point of pride often discussed under the stadium lights at local high school football games down south, contrasting heavily with the educational frustrations felt by many families up north. Moving along to taxes, budgets, and business. This is the policy that hits your wallet every time you buy groceries or open your paycheck. Maryland relies heavily on progressive income taxes, meaning higher earners pay more. Florida, however, leverages its massive tourism industry. Every visitor buying theme park tickets or paying covers at local music venues helps fund the government almost entirely through sales tax, leaving residents with absolutely no state income tax. According to the analysis, Florida's low-tax business environment consistently allows its economic growth to outpace Maryland and the national average. It creates a bustling, high-growth job market vibe that you can palpably feel when walking through expanding downtown districts. Next up, standard of living outcomes. But does a lower tax burden and lower spending automatically equate to a lower standard of living? Let's look at what you actually get for your money. Maryland's per-resident spending is vastly higher than Florida's, a massive gap that significantly impacts how each state approaches health, education, and the daily transportation network you rely on. While Maryland's high spending translates to superior healthcare rankings, meaning fewer uninsured neighbors and a wider safety net when you get sick, Florida still manages to achieve surprisingly strong infrastructure outcomes. Driving to catch a pro football game in Miami, you will find the bridges and roads actually score higher condition ratings than the pothole-heavy commutes you might experience navigating Maryland's aging transit system for a Sunday tailgate in Baltimore. Shifting gears to climate hazards and resilience. Now we pivot to the great environmental equalizer, where local weather truly disrupts daily life. While Florida regularly faces the acute, catastrophic destruction of major hurricanes sweeping in off the coast, Maryland deals with a wider spread of pervasive hazards like devastating riverine and flash floods. Looking at Maryland's history, severe weather events are a constant, expensive threat. Anyone living there remembers the massive windstorms, known as derechos, knocking out the power grid for extended periods, completely ruining the food in your fridge and bringing local businesses to a halt. Furthermore, the slow-moving crisis of sea level rise places an enormous volume of Maryland properties at substantial risk of chronic nuisance flooding. Imagine trying to catch an evening live music set in downtown Annapolis and having to weed through sunny day floodwaters just to cross the historic brick streets. Finally, the current housing market correction. Let's look at the current economic reality check. After an unprecedented boom, there has been a staggering decline in Florida median home prices recently as the rapid population influx begins to cool off. The rapid growth Florida enjoyed triggered its own set of daily economic challenges. The market correction is being driven by soaring property insurance rates, a harsh reality of coastal living, alongside higher housing costs, leaving homes sitting on the market much longer and changing the dynamic of local neighborhoods. Ultimately, looking at the data, you have to wonder if the high tax, high service model or the low tax, high growth model is better equipped to handle the challenges of the future. Each state offers a completely different rhythm of daily life, and deciding which is best depends entirely on what you value most. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and stay curious.